Welcome to Harmony and Hustle, the Power Couple podcast. My name is Sabrina Reynolds, and this is my awesome and amazing husband, Lou Reynolds. And Lou, I would love to ask you, what's on the table today?
Well, Sabrina, today we are going to be talking about the 3 T's.
The 3 T's?
Yes, ma'am. That is, of course, hot tea, iced tea, and sweet tea.
Listen, okay, if you're in Georgia, sweet tea is just tea. Okay, you don't have to say sweet tea. In Georgia, it's just tea. No, okay, seriously. What are the 3 T's?
The 3 T's are time, talent, and treasure.
All right.
And we're going to be able to have a great conversation and dissect what that really means. So tell me, Sabrina, what do you think about the 3 T's?
The 3 T's, time, talent, and treasure. Really, I think about how we invest all of those 3 things in all of those 3 things. Really, how do we invest our time? How do we invest our talent or invest in our talent? And how do we invest with our treasure?
Yeah, absolutely. I look at it very much the same. Those are the 3 keys of investing. And so how we're utilizing each of those 3 T's is everything in how we're showing up in each one of the things that the Lord puts in front of us. So if we say we're called to something, I would ask, how are we utilizing those 3 T's in that thing that we've been called to?
Okay, tell me a little bit more.
Yeah, so the thing that you have been given, that you are supposed to be working towards, working on, it's really important for you to have some time where you've said, I'm going to see where I am with investing my time into this thing, with investing my talent into this thing, and investing my treasure into this thing.
Okay, so I hear you say that this thing that I've been given, are you talking specifically about business, dream, relationship? What, like, how are you relating those things?
That's a great question. I would answer you in this way. I'm talking about all of it.
Okay.
Because truthfully, even though a lot of what I would say around this topic of investing those 3 T's might come off like that's a business conversation.
Right.
To be clear, though, it's true in every aspect. So I'm talking about business and I'm talking about your relationships.
Mhm.
Because if I'm not showing up in my relationships like somebody who has invested my time into it, my talent into it, and my treasure into it, then I would say that relationship can't be flourishing. Does the other person even know that I'm vested?
That's
So
good.
that's why I say that the 3 T's are important in every aspect of our lives. So much of what you're going to hear, you could take it and say, this is how I'm utilizing this inside of business. And that's true. It's absolutely true. But someone else could be listening to the same thing I'm saying and say to themselves, wow, that's how I want to show up in my relationships. And you'll find that it is also true. I'd like to take time to kind of break these T's apart
Okay.
and not just look at it in the very broad sense of, hey, here are the 3 T's. It's like, okay, here you go, have some. No, I'm really want to take time and delve into these 3 T's. So I want to start by talking about our time.
Okay.
Where should I invest my time is a common question that I think people might ask themselves. What should I be doing with my time?
Yeah, because we all get the same 24/7, and we see some people operating in this a little bit more successfully than others. So what are they doing differently with their time?
Absolutely. So the thing that you might want to consider first is, how do you determine what to do with your time? Because people can tell you what to do. And obviously, if you're someone who's working in the business world, like you're working for a company and they have very specific things that they want you to do and accomplish.
Right.
And they give you a specific amount of time to get that done in.
Right. The
Yep.
time frame is 40 hours.
There you go. Or whatever it is.
Get her done.
Yeah. Whatever the time frame is that they give you, that's your time. and that's how you're going to utilize it, and so forth. But I want to also take it from the broader sense of, so what that they told you that that's what you have to do in that time? Are you doing it? That's really the question. And so whether somebody told you or you're coming up with that time, you have to then be disciplined in making sure that you're using that allotted amount of time effectively.
Okay.
So to me, that comes down to, what are the instruments that you're using to make sure that you're staying on your proper time parameter,
Okay.
whether that's your calendar
Mm-hmm.
and you have very specific things that you're doing at very specific times. Those are investments of your time.
Yeah.
And I would just say, how does that reflect on the things that are truly important to you?
Right. Because your calendar is really going to show what's most important to you. If you use a calendar,
If you use a calendar.
you can actually track it that way. I'm a little concerned about those who don't use a calendar, and they probably think they're doing better than they are
Mhm.
when it comes to really having that harmony between business, professional, and personal time that they're spending, and the spiritual time, the time that they're spending with God. I think that maybe if you're not tracking it, you're not doing as good as you think you are.
So there's an actual, I don't know what it's called, a syndrome, a
Mm.
sickness
What?
where you think you have more time than you actually do.
That's called procrastination.
Yes, there's another name. There's another name for it. It actually is a thing. If you
Okay.
know what the name is, please put it in the chat. I'd love to know what
The
it's actually
scientific
called.
the
It's a
scientific
scientific
term.
term.
Okay.
But if you feel like you have more time than what you actually do, you start making decisions and plans that sometimes you're never going to be able to get accomplished. You're never going to be able to do those things.
Okay.
So that's why I say, like, your time and how you invest your time is so vital and important to your overall success in the things that you've been called to do.
Right, and you won't know how much time you've actually invested unless you're actually tracking it. So, I go back to gotta have the calendar so you know where you're spending most of your time.
Sure, sure, absolutely. And as you think about that, there are things that I consider in, when I'm looking at investing my time, what is really important here. One of the things you've heard me say repeatedly, and I'm sure many of you have heard this before, but if everything is a priority in your life,
No.
nothing is a priority in your life. And so it's not that you are telling people, hey, you're more important than this person. And so I'm going to spend time with you right now. That's not what I'm getting at. What I'm getting at is, there are times throughout my day, my week, that I know there are these things that need to get accomplished. It's the priority in the moment. It doesn't mean it's more of a priority than my family. But in the moment, I do need to be working on that particular thing to get that thing done. So how we actually put the times together that are needed so that we can accomplish the things that are truly important and impactful in our lives is something that we all need to be doing. So when do we do that? When do we have the time to say, this is what I'm going to focus in on? Is what is the thing that I should be working on at any given period? What's the priority in that moment?
Yeah, you know what? I'm thinking back to what you said about that sickness. I think I might have it. I think I might have it because I always think that I have more time than I actually do. And it's not just procrastination, but when I am trying to perform a task and I say, okay, this is on the checklist of something that I've got to do today. I've got to create content. And I think, oh, this should take me 15 minutes to do this. Brainstorm an idea, write out something really quick, and then sure, I should be able to get that into a post or create it into something in this 15-minute time frame when it actually really takes an hour to do some of those things. One of the things that I have learned in that is I have to do a timer. Time myself. What how much time does this really take? And I think that was a huge mistake in the beginning of business. I always thought that I can get these things done a lot sooner than I realized. And a lot of it had to do with the fact that I just didn't have the knowledge, experience. I didn't have a rhythm or a process that was in place. So I conjured up this imaginary time frame that I thought that I could get it done in. And then when it took longer, I was frustrated, aggravated, angry with myself, feeling, I guess, insecure because I wasn't accomplishing all that I thought that I would in this time frame, and all that, those thoughts that would just really cross through my head. But in learning the time frame and writing out the process, this has really helped me when I am now managing my calendar and managing my time. It says this is really going to take me longer than I am thinking because I've got that sickness.
Yeah, I think that many people, I am too, I am one that goes through that, where I thought, I have more than enough time to accomplish this particular task that I've been thinking through. And then I realized I didn't have enough time to get it done. And I'm like, it's going to take me longer than I expected. But there's something to that, especially when you know that this is something that you do have an issue with, where we can learn from those situations.
Yeah.
So if I think that I can get this task accomplished in 30 minutes and I work through the task, I put in the, requisite effort necessary to get it done, and I realize, oh, that took 45 minutes to get done, then I can assess, is that because it's a new task to me?
Okay.
Because that might be a thing where I'm just kind of learning how to do this
Right.
thing,
So
and so I'll get faster.
Yeah, or you're fumbling through it the first few times.
Right.
Uh-huh.
So that's one assessment. The other assessment is, you know what, I really do need to spend this amount of time to make sure I do this well, because there's a process involved and I need to check things and what have you. Oh, okay, so this really is how long it takes to get it accomplished. Well, now I know for the next time to allot myself the full 45 minutes in order to do it and do it effectively and do it well. The issue with the sickness we're talking about, the issue is that sometimes when you have this, you just keep on doing that same thing over and over.
The same dumb thing over and over again.
I'm going to get it done in 15 minutes next time. I know it.
It's like getting dressed, right? We're going to get out the door in 15 minutes. Yeah, right.
Exactly.
But I think that really helped us. Like, first of all, we got into a lot of arguments because I was late, Lou was late, then I'm trying to prove to him that he's later than I am. He takes longer to get dressed. So I'm rushing out the door just trying to prove a point, and I'm forgetting stuff and I only did my mascara primer and I forgot to actually put the black mascara on.
That's the worst, right? When you try to prove that point to me, you rush out the door, and then I come out the door, I get in the car, I'm ready to go, and you're like, oh, wait, I forgot 5 things.
That's the worst. I am competitive, y'all. I hate when that happens. I'm like, ugh.
Yes.
Yeah.
Totally understand that.
I think that has really helped in us to have less arguments and less frustration with each other when we're planning the time better, because I'm saying, hey, I'll be ready in 15 minutes. And then I'll go to myself, nope, I still got to do da, 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 da. I know I have a process. Hey, Lou, I'll be ready in more like 45. Does that work for you? And that is a point of communication. It's saying, I'm clearly communicating the time frame that it's going to take. That helps us with less arguments. We're trying to help you guys, okay? We're trying to help you to argue less. We've argued enough for everybody, so we hope to help you to get better.
So one of the assessments that I also look at with my time is, I mentioned before about moments. Sometimes in a moment, something takes priority over something else. Not that that thing is so important that it's more important than everything else in my life, but it's in a moment.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I'm making the analysis of what is the return on my investment of time.
Okay.
So I want to put some time into doing this particular thing. Maybe I need to do that, right? Maybe it's something that feeds me. It's a hobby or something that is beneficial for me, not necessarily for anyone or anything else, but I need it for me.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, the return on the investment of my time in this is that I feel rejuvenated. I feel like, wow, I'm on cloud nine, and now I can accomplish great things when I take on other tasks. And so having that inside of our decision-making process is really important. So you can see how that it applies business-wise, it applies personal-wise,
Mm.
it applies relationship-wise. All of that factors into checking the return on the investment.
Okay, so confession time. This was a struggle for me. This was a hard thing for me, is doing something that had no value as far as it having a return on my investment if it didn't relate to business, if it didn't relate to someone else feeling good. I had a very tough time just doing things for me and figuring out something that I just enjoyed, and it was a senseless activity. Guys, I used to get mad at him when he would spend so much time on fantasy football. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, why is he investing so much time in fantasy football? It's fantasy football. It's not even real football. It's a fake team." But then I started to understand that he was doing this and it was bringing him joy. It was making him happy to win or to trade or, to have these conversations with guys in the league, from church, and it really was rejuvenating for him. That's not my thing. I mean, I help him make some trades and I discuss fantasy football stuff with him.
We're going to edit that out because
No, don't edit that out.
I'm
Oh,
not sure that there's enough value in what you just said to keep that in the
really?
episode.
Really? Okay, so you don't want the guys to know that I actually have input in your fantasy football team? Oh, okay. I see how you are. Anyway, what he's taught me in this, and I had to honestly really think about how I was viewing it. What he's taught me in this is that you can have fun and it doesn't have to have a business value to it or something that can make money. Honestly, I would turn every idea or thought into a business plan. It's ridiculous. It's so like I couldn't just enjoy something. I had to figure out, oh, well, how does this become a business? And is this something we can run? Like crazy. And so what I am learning now is there is benefit in investing time in things that don't necessarily benefit someone else or benefit the business. I can actually do something that pours into me, which is really cool. And it's not just getting my nails done or getting my hair done. It's something that it feeds the creativity in me. I am a hands-on person. I like building things. I like working with my hands. So I have a hobby where Lou is kind enough to buy me a miniature house. Yay! And I'm getting all these miniature furniture as gifts and miniature things. And it's really getting me excited because it's something that I can have for me that feeds my creativity. And it doesn't necessarily have to, again, become a business or build somebody else up, which is a new thing for me.
Yeah, I want to add a little bit too to the things that you might be thinking about in terms of making this time investment. I don't want you to ever feel like some kind of a time investment in yourself is a loss.
Right.
No, that's huge gain, huge gain. And so it might be you decide, I'm going to sit down and read this book because I really just enjoy reading a good book.
Mm-hmm.
That's important.
Yeah.
You are going to be at your best. Now, sure, there were things inside of the business that needed to be done that you could have been doing in that moment.
Yes, there's always something that needs to be done.
The business is never going to be complete in terms of no tasks need to be done.
Right.
That's something you have to realize. To all my business owners out there, If you are new in business, I want to go ahead and relieve you of that thought process now. There is always something to be done. If you've been in business for a while, then you totally understand what we're talking
You
about.
already know.
You know this. So I want you to stop for a moment and think about this. This is something that I had to learn as we got started in business, is that I can be in a moment where I'm going to do a task and I'm going to do it and it's going to get done. But was that absolutely me showing up at my best? Well, that's a question I'd have to ask myself. And what I discovered is that sometimes I would have a task that needed to be done. But if I just took 15 minutes for myself and did something that recharged my battery, I would come back and do the task that had to be done so much better and sometimes even faster, just because I've been recharged and rejuvenated and I'm coming at this with a fresh mindset. Versus you just put the task there and it's like, you could do this task or you could be doing this thing that would refuel you. No, I'm going to do the task. Can you see the level of energy that that task is going to get from you? You're never going to show up at your best when the battery is low. And so that's something I learned about me. I think if it's true for others, then I am grateful to share it. But I learned it pretty quickly that when I'm doing things, when I'm not at my peak, they don't turn out as well as when my battery is really charged up.
Yeah, and I'm gonna speak from the workaholic aspect as well, that when you're trying to plow through something that you think is gonna take you just another 10 minutes, just another 10 more minutes, and if I could just finish this, and then you're 15, 20, 30, 40 minutes in and you're still not done. Confession, that's me. You have to really think about, are you really getting the return on your investment that you think you are? The truth is, you're not. You're really getting a diminished return. You're really not getting the best out of yourself. And I know it feels like, but I just got to get it done now. And if I just plow through, it'll be wonderful. It's not true. That's a lie that I have told myself for many, many years, and it has really been a game changer to take a break and to pause and then go back to it. That has been really helpful, and it was hard. I felt guilty, I felt horrible. I felt like if I get out of this rhythm, I'm not gonna be able to get back in, and it's just gonna take me all day to get back into the rhythm, and all these things that I told myself that were just not true. And really managing my time better has really been helpful. We talk about prioritization and we talk about techniques like time blocking, theming your days. We talk about using the Pomodoro technique, all these things that really help you to not burn out, not overwork yourself, and manage your time wisely.
Yeah, I do want to say, as we are kind of transitioning from time now into talent, is that there are time sucks that exist. So when I say to you that it's important for you to refuel and take time for yourself so that you can show up as your best self in the tasks that need to get done, an important thing to analyze too is that, is this thing even a time suck? So what I mean by that is it's just sucking so much time from me that time is truly being wasted. I have to assess that. So if I say I'm going to do something that is refueling to me, and let's say it's in the middle of the day and I just want to take 15 minutes to do this thing, I have to stay true, dedicated, and committed to that time frame that I'm giving myself.
Mm.
So take my 15 minutes, do that thing, get recharged, get refueled, and come back and attack the tasks that really need to get done.
Yeah.
So that's important too. Don't fall into the time suck trap where, I went to go do this thing for 15 minutes and 4 hours later, the day is done. I'm not getting anything else accomplished. So don't fall for that.
Yeah, I think that's where the workaholics kind of feel afraid to take that break and say, well, what if this happens and somebody calls and I got to make a phone call and I got to do, all those things. But if you are trying to create good habits and trying to be more disciplined with that, get yourself back on track by saying, okay, 15 minutes, even if it's just to stand and walk around and do nothing. Because if you go into the kitchen, you're going to start doing something else. We work from home. If you go into a different area and somebody's going to start talking to you, then okay, fine. Then stand up and walk around your desk for those 15 minutes, but give your brain a break so you can really get back into it.
Yeah, sometimes it's not to do something.
Right.
Sometimes that is the important thing that you need to invest your time in.
True.
It's not doing anything.
True.
Take that nice walk and just let your head clear of all the stress that you've been potentially under, or feeling like you've got to meet deadlines, pressure, whatever it is. Give yourself that break to be able to do that.
All right. Well, let's transition into talent. Tell me more.
So it's important that we know what our talents are, what are the strengths that we've been given, and how do we feed those things? And so after identifying it, how do we feed them? And then how do we use them or invest them into the things that we've been called to do?
Okay. I love identifying talents. Here's a big reason is because I was that kid that didn't think that I had enough or had what it takes. And when I started understanding your gifts and strengths, that really helped to build my confidence because I didn't know what I was good at. And I always wanted to be spectacular at one thing. And that's just not my personality. I'm one of those jack of all trades, and I was good at a lot of things. And that actually made me feel insecure because I hadn't mastered the one. And so for me, understanding my variety of gifts and talents has really been a confidence booster. And also, it helped me to really focus in on the things that I'm really good at, as opposed to trying to do all the stuff that I'm not good at. I've learned to focus in on my strengths.
Yeah, the jack of all trades quote gets misquoted a lot.
Yes.
Someone should look that up. But no, there's a lot more to it than that. That is a gift in and of itself, and sometimes we dismiss that because having the ability to transition into different areas is a talent all by itself. Not everyone can do that, and some of us have to just stay in our pocket and be good with it. We just can't do all these other things. So it's a talent unto itself. Just a little piece for the jack of all
So the
trades
jack
out
of all trades out there. Yeah. And I think it's the jack of all trades, master of none is better than being a master of none. Something like that. Look it up. Don't quote me on it. I'm just guessing from memory.
Thank you for bringing some clarity to what I was talking about. But yes, that's what I was getting at. But knowing your strengths and understanding what they are also important for the people that you are engaged in business with, in relationship with, whatever the case may be. It's really important to them because when I don't show up as me, if I start trying to do the things that Sabrina's been gifted to do, and I start trying to do those things instead of Sabrina, then those things don't go well. We've seen that in action. I know what my lane is, and I know how to stay in that lane because I operate best within it. As an example, Sabrina and I have had this discussion before with you guys about how there may be something where she comes up with an idea. And so she is really good at having this idea that is really big picture and high level. And so me, I'm an executor. That's one of my gifts. And so I start looking at how do we execute on a plan to do the thing that you're talking about. And so if I start going into other areas that I'm not gifted in, like, oh, you think that's a good idea? Watch this. I have an even bigger idea. That's not my lane. It's not that I don't have ideas.
Yeah.
But it's important for me to understand where my true gifting lies. It's not that I can't overlap into these other areas,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm flexing into those areas versus this is where my true gifting is. And my talent can really be utilized effectively inside of this space. And so it's important for us to know what those gifts are so that we can utilize them and invest them well.
Yeah. And when I'm talking about the tests that we're saying, I'm not talking about the personality tests. Those are great to understand your personality or your emotional intelligence. Those are great. But you really want something that's going to tell you what your strengths are. And the Strength Finders test, I feel like that's a really good one. There's also another one that I've taken, High Five Gifting. I think that's what it's called, a High Five test, High Five Gifting test, something like that. That also tells you your gifts. That to me, I feel like those are good things to really show you where your skill sets lie. Also, doing a 360 review and asking others around you to really tell you what you're known for. What are you good at? What are some of the things that people say, oh my gosh, you do this so well that feels like second nature to you? It feels very easy. What are some of those things? That's how you really start to get to know what your skill set is. If you're already operating in business and you're trying to figure out why isn't a certain product working or why isn't this certain service working, that could be something that you might want to check into. Are you really called to be in that particular area, or should you niche down a little bit more for a specific person? Those are just some of the things that I would encourage you to start thinking about.
Yeah, we've discovered that sometimes it's just you need someone else
Yeah.
to actually come in to relationship with you in business to do that particular thing.
Hmm.
It's not that I couldn't do it. It's just that it's not my strength. And when I want it done at a certain level, I'm incapable of meeting my own guideline of how I want this task to be done. And so it's cool to be able to bring other people into your sphere and say, oh, okay, I'm going to, contract this out, or I'm going to hire someone that will be able to do this for the business because I understand that it's not my strength. I could do it, but should I do it?
Should you do it? That's a really good one, especially for my multi-passionate people out there. By jack of all trades, you could probably figure out how to do anything. You probably figure out, oh yeah, I can do that. I can do that. But when you're doing it all, that's a problem. You really need to be able to figure out what are you really, really good at and what brings you joy when you're doing it. It's not just because you can do it. It's should you be doing it? And you really need to think about getting people to support you, getting those involved that can really help you out. And I know a lot of times you're like, well, I can't afford it, and in some cases you really can't afford not to because your business is now stagnant because you're trying to be the head cook and the bottle washer. Just go ahead and hire a bottle washer if you're a great cook. If you're not a great cook, then hire a great cook so you can be the bottle washer. You really need to make sure that you're not really doing this alone, or you're utilizing people or software that can assist you in those areas that you may not be as strong in.
Yeah, that's good, Sabrina. Sometimes it's maybe not a person, but there are different softwares that have been built and been created to support you in doing that thing at a higher level. So, yeah, you want to employ those things and make sure you're utilizing those things. I started off by saying, these are the 3 T's, but it's all about investment. So, how are you investing your talent? So, one piece of investing your talent is investing in that talent. And so, don't be ever like afraid, maybe even afraid is not the right word, but hesitant to invest in yourself in that particular area of talent that you have, because there's no one like you and no one can do it the way that you do it. So don't get caught comparing yourself to other people. Oh, but they do it at this really high level. Okay, but they can't do it like you do it.
Right.
And that's important to remember. Invest in yourself and, get the tools and resources that make you great at what you do. You're a complement to so many others. And so find out, hey, I'm really great at doing this. Don't get caught in comparing yourself, but find out how can you be better just yourself at doing that particular thing.
Yeah. One of the things that I can give a practical example is I built a website through this software that was kind of cheap. It wasn't WordPress. So I utilized that and I found out, oh, I'm pretty good at this. I'm pretty good at building websites. I didn't like it, but I did it out of necessity. And then I found this other one that's more money, but it makes building the website so much easier. I had to switch. I said, "Why am I wasting my time with this? I didn't go into business to become a website builder. There are other people that are called to do this. This is what they get joy out of. And for me, I didn't. I just did it out of necessity. And I'm spending a little bit more money, not a ton more, but a little bit more to save myself a ton of time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. And the other part of investing the talent too is how am I using that for other people?
Right.
So investing my talents in places that I feel called to. There may not be this is the business decision that goes off and explodes and I'm going to be contracting to do this for a million different companies.
Right.
Maybe I'm just supposed to help a person.
One person.
They need some help and support with this area and I'm great at it. That might be done through a conversation. It might be done through a meeting, whatever the case may be. I can take my talent and invest that wisely into a relationship that I have with someone.
Yeah. Like one of the things that happened recently, which I've done in the past, but most recently is I know someone who is starting a new business and she is very excited and she's great at what she does, but she's like, I don't know how to get my LLC. And for me, I've done this before. That's not part of our service. I've done it
Many times.
many times for our many businesses, but that's not a service that we offer, but it's something that I wanted to share my talent and say, hey, I know how to do this. Let me walk you through this step by step. And that was really helpful. And that was an investment of my talent into someone else.
And what I want to really focus in on with what you just said is that, so there was no monetary return on that.
No.
That doesn't mean that there was no return on your investment.
Right.
Because what you just invested into that person and into the relationship that you have with that person, money wouldn't even be able to quantify the level of effect that you've had in that person's life. And so don't always make the decision about whether this investment is a wise investment in my talent based around what the monetary returns are.
Yeah.
It's not all about the money, guys. It's not just what the monetary return is. There are many returns on our investment that we have to be able to dissect and determine, am I getting good return for what I'm doing?
Right. And I'm not doing this all day, every day for anybody. So for the record, but I made a decision that this is where I wanted to invest my time and my talent.
Yeah. So I want to transition us now, Sabrina, to talking about the one that most people have the hardest time talking about.
Yes, the treasure.
The treasure. Like, how are you investing your treasure? So we've all been given an opportunity to do things with the money that's been placed in our hands. And how we utilize that, what we do with it, those investments that we make are super important to what we see as a return on it.
Yes.
So making the decisions about where to put our treasure, what should we be investing our treasure in, is really important.
Yes.
Share with us what's one thing that you can think of that you're like, I make this a priority when I'm choosing.
Okay. The big thing for me is budget. Now, in the beginning, it was called the B word. This was a cuss word to me. I was like, budget? What? What? I don't like this. Lou is the financial wizard and I am the spending wizard. So when he brought up the idea of having a budget, it just felt restrictive. And what are we talking about? But that has been actually the biggest blessing is understanding the budget and really knowing where the money is going and how much is actually required to make something happen. And it has really helped to understand maybe the things that we probably shouldn't have invested in, lessons learned in those areas, but not just, hey, we failed, but it's really, we look at it as lessons learned. What did we learn in this and how can we do better the next time? So budget to me has been the biggest, most successful things that we've implemented into our personal and professional lives.
Yeah, the treasure for me, when I think about where I'm going to invest treasure, I think about it from the context of if I have this money, let's just call it money for what it is. If I have this money and I'm thinking about putting it into something, I want to know what it is about that something that drew me to put my money into it. So is it that I feel like this is a business that, God has called me to, and so I'm going to invest my money in this business because I believe he's going to do something with this that's going to be a blessing, going to grow, whatever the case may be? Is it that it's a person and I feel like God is saying, hey, be a blessing to this person. I'm not looking for them to give me the money back or to pay me interest necessarily on the money. Maybe that's not the call in this moment. Maybe it's just to go ahead and invest it in this person. And the return on that investment is what this person is going to be able to do, potentially accomplish, or the situation that it might allow them to get out of.
One of the things I feel like we've learned in that is if we're going to invest our treasure into someone, is to not to expect it back. That's a huge decision maker for us. If we're going to invest, we don't invest in everybody, but if we are going to invest, we don't expect it to be returned. And we do that because if that person is valuable to us in relationship, we don't want money to be a thing between us. We know that people go through hard times. So if we have it to give, we want to be a blessing. And the truth is, if we don't have it to give, we have to make the decision to say, no, we can't give this because I can't throw away that particular amount of money at this particular time. I think that has been also a help for us because we've learned some hard lessons with expecting money to be paid back and not, and needing it, and having just really difficult conversations
Yeah.
and difficult relationships, like having it cause like problems in relationships because there was the expectation that it would be returned and it wasn't. And that helped us to learn about people's character too.
Yeah. Just to be clear, like, even though we're saying that, that we go in with this expectation of, not that we lost the money, but hey, this is money that I'm investing in this to see, what's going to become of this person, how this person is going to be able to rebound from it. Now, having said that, if you're out there and you owe us money, this doesn't mean don't pay us back, okay? So go ahead
Amen.
and clear that up. If you still owe us, you can go ahead and pay us back.
Thank you.
We're just not expecting it, but I would appreciate the unexpected blessing. So you can go ahead and pay us back on that. But no, but seriously. So, investing your treasure becomes something that you are attaching to that, the reality of, hey, I know that this is something I feel in my heart that we're supposed to do. We're supposed to put this money, a treasure towards this particular thing.
Mm.
And then we don't worry about, that, oh, this, I wonder if I wasted my money on that, because that can be something that holds us. And I don't want anything holding us.
That's true.
And so I try my best not to have that mindset wrapped around it. And a lot of that has to do with what you said, with not feeling like, how soon am I getting this back, or, or having some attachment that's there to that. So I do think that's important in our treasure as well, that the treasure is not holding us. We get to hold treasure,
Not treasure hold.
not treasure holding us.
That's good. Another thing I think about is when we're making a business decision also is doing a cost analysis. We really have to think about, what is this money that we're investing? What is really going to be the return, and how long is it going to take for us to get the return? And is this a wise financial decision? And that has helped us recently to not burden ourselves with an extra cost that we just don't know what the market is doing at this point. And it really helped us to pull back on some of those things and really making sure that we were investing in the right area, in the right space, and not just throwing money to the wind, because that would have been a huge financial risk that we were going to take.
Yeah, and what I said before about, not feeling that pull or that attachment to that treasure, that's about post having made the investment. After you've invested it, That's where I want my mindset to be. What you're talking about is before you make the investment.
Yes, sir.
And so that's really important to differentiate those two things. Before you do it, count the cost for sure.
Yeah.
Another thing I want to put out there for people who are, launching off into something that they feel that God has called them to. When God gives you a vision for something, he gives you the provision for that thing. And so sometimes you can get a vision of something and you're like, I'm going to start running and I'm going to make this thing happen and I'm going to do this and this. And you don't have the proper provision for it yet. So sometimes he's given you the vision. It's not that he hasn't, it's that the provision hasn't come yet because you're not ready to run yet.
Yeah.
You're running before the provision has come.
Yeah.
And so, it's important sometimes for us to distinguish between, hey, God gave me this vision, and so I'm going to go make it happen versus I'm depending. God loves to have us in a position where we're dependent on him. When we start, coming into things like I'm self-reliant, I'm going to figure this out, I'm going to make this thing happen. Okay, so whose vision is it? Did God give you the vision, or is this something you crafted for yourself because you're writing your own story on it?
That's good, Lou. That's good. Well, let's get in harmony on the things that we agree on.
So I agree, Sabrina, that the 3 T's are essential to us making any investment decision.
That's good. That's good. Reviewing your time, talent, and treasure is essential. That's good. I like that. I feel that I agree that we need to be honest with where we are with all these different areas. Where are we with the way we utilize our time? Where are we with the way we utilize our talent and the way we utilize our treasure? A lot of times we get into these positions where we're kind of like, well, how did I get here? It's because we weren't honest with ourselves in some of these areas. And I feel we've gone through that. That's why we can speak to budgeting and cost analysis, because we've made the mistakes of going in without consulting God or thinking that we're consulting him, but still pushing through and pressing on to make it happen in our own time frame and in our own strength.
Yeah, I think one thing that I'm definitely in agreement on is when we think about these 3 T's and how we're making the investments of these things, that it does require us to pause and really think about where we are. You can't pour from an empty jug.
That is so good.
And so if you don't have the treasure, there's nothing for you to pour out for this particular thing. If you don't have the time, you can't pour from where you don't have. And so it doesn't mean that adjustments don't necessarily need to be made if this is something you're called to, but don't be facetious and start thinking like, oh, so I saw this thing, I think I want to do this thing, and so I'm going to make all of these investments from places that you don't have it to give.
Yeah. And the last thing I agree on is that we need to be intentional about investing in ourselves, investing in our personal growth, investing in ourselves, period. That we have to be intentional about that. Like you said, you can't pour from an empty vessel. So if you're not investing in yourself, how are you investing in others?
Love that. Love that. Thank you so much. Lastly, guys, remember, in your hustle, pursue Yahweh, not my way.
We hope today's episode gave you something real, something you can take with you to build stronger relationships, a thriving business, and a life filled with purpose. Remember, life isn't about juggling it all. It's about finding that rhythm, harmony, or that flow that works for you. If this message resonated with you, please don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe, share it with someone you think needs to hear it, or drop us a comment, because your voice matters. Check out our website and keep up with us on social. Until next time, stay blessed, stay focused, and keep moving in your rhythm.